These are my favorite and not so favorite metal albums of September, starting with Revocation with New Gods, New Masters. Album 9 from this highly consistent fusion of thrash, death, and prog. They often teeter between which genre takes priority from album to album, but it was clear from the singles that they are more than happy only leaning further into death metal at this point. Killer riffs and songwriting with a dark graveyard atmosphere, as well as guest spots from Travis Ryan of Cattle Decapitation and Job for a Cowboy's Johnny Davey. As I said in the discography tier list, this may be my new favorite, and I think tops the previous album in every way. Next up is Cult Burial with Collapse of Pattern, Reverence of Dust. The third album from this UK black and death metal band, delivering some similar sonic qualities as Ulcerate, but with their own chilling twist. Some of these tracks truly seem to echo into eternity. That's when they aren't pounding you into dust. More great contrast between vast, drifting soundscapes and violent barrages of double bass pedal. Feels like a nice transition album as we approach spooky season, too. Then we have Violator with Unholy Retribution. The fourth album from this Brazilian thrash metal band, formed in 2002, and their first in over a decade. Full speed, no holds barred, 80s thrash metal energy here with a vengeance. Comparisons here to everything from Warbringer to Slayer, loaded with endless hooks and bathed in sacrificial blood. It's another one here to scare the normies.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
Then we have Igorrr with Amen. Always a good month when one of the most unique and innovative projects around releases a new album. And on this fifth record, Gautier and company only continue to put a smile on my face with his increasingly unpredictable twists and turns. From Baroque to breakcore, this Frenchman really twists my brain into knots on tracks like Blastbeat Falafel featuring Trey Spruance of Mr. Bungle and Headbutt, which crescendos with a mic'd up piano being crushed by an excavator. Nothing is sonically off limits to Igorrr, and it's that boundless creativity that continues to make each album such a joy to receive. Then we have Imperialist with Prime.
It's my world. You'll never be free. Infecting your minds. However I please.
Transcending Obscurity Records bringing a number of the goods this month, starting with the third album from this California black metal and thrash band, mixed and mastered by the legendary Don Suano, and with sci-fi energy for days. The FFO section of the press release recommends them to a plethora of big-name fan bases, from Vector and Vuldren to Immortal and Dissection. Icy cold darkness from the vastness of space. We also have Werewolves with The Ugliest of All. Now, we've been chronicling this Australian deathgride band's mission to record 10 albums in 10 years for a while now. This is album 6, and they have yet to run out of steam, and frankly, this may be one of the most vicious yet. Always an impeccable incorporation of samples as well, from Sexy Beast to Aqua Teen Hunger Force and Trading Spaces. They add to the already highly confrontational energy of the D-beats and blackened guitars. Of course, we have Between the Buried and Me with the Blue Nowhere.
A fever dream, reach across the streets of legacy.
Another ambitious mix of progressive metal and metalcore, seeming to bring in elements of every other genre under the sun. If you enjoyed Colors 2, this feels very much like a continuation of that approach. Blasts of brass, ballroom dancing, funky 80s synth pop, and explosions of grindy technical madness are all part of the game here. There's a reason that this continues to be one of my favorite bands, even now over 20 years after that fateful day I stumbled across the Silent Circus at the record store. I was expecting this to be my favorite album of the month, but there's one that actually beat it. But moving on, we have Abyssalis with Adaptation. Another sick record from Transcending Obscurity, and another this year with Max Smith on vocals of Apogeian and Eschaton. Does this guy ever sleep? Here he's joined by members of Fleshbore and Unaligned, and true to seemingly every project he touches, it's an extremely tight and headbang-worthy slice of death metal. Just 5 songs, but all rippers with a groove that would definitely be welcome to fans of Aborted. Some nice little quiet, eerie moments of atmosphere sprinkled in there as well to help pump up the contrast. And speaking of Unaligned, we have Unaligned with A Form Beyond. So yeah, if that wasn't enough, we have more killer death metal from Transcending Obscurity with the debut of this tech death crew. Killer drums and sick riffs, but also killer bass work on this one that'll really give you stank face. Absolutely dominating vocal performance here too. This guy is pissed. Recommended to fans of stuff like the Black Dahlia Murder, Demon King, and Veil of Nath. Next up is Mortal Scepter with Ethereal Dominance. The second album from this French blackened thrash metal band, and as is the pretty much one prerequisite I have for an album in this style, it brings the riffs and the energy. And the vocals give me a bit of early Creator vibes as well. Absolutely shredding stuff that really got me moving to each earworm hook and with an overwhelming sense of evil to boot. Track lengths could be shaved down just a little bit, but I wasn't ever bored. We also have Moore's Principium Est with Darkness Invisible. Longtime fan of this highly underrated Finnish melodeath band, now in their 9th record, even if I consider the last one to be more of a compilation of re-recordings. Regardless, I'm always excited to see their name come across my desk, and once more both the guitars and symphonic elements deliver on the big atmosphere. It feels like they are even trying to further step up the more dramatic qualities of the music with some of these interludes, and All Life is Evil is just like full-on Flesh God Apocalypse at this point. Another really strong album in a tight discography. Once more, if you haven't taken the dive with their records, please do. Frankly, I like them better than Insomnium. Then we have Demiurgon with Miasmatic Deathless Chamber. Another Transcending Obscurity death metal entry, this one out of Italy, and with more of an old school technical vibe I'd compare to Suffocation or Malevolent Creation. This is their 3rd record, and clocking in at around 36 minutes, it feels as tight as a drum. It also feels slimy to me, like it's coated in mucus. And the jangly guitar work spurts and sputters like an open wound with plenty of that 90s Florida flair. We also have another one from Esoctrilihum with Ghostigmatah, Spiritual Rites of the Psychopomp Abxulöm. I've got to say, at this point, I kind of groan whenever I see this name pop up, as this French project's output offers no breaks in the release schedule. And at another nearly hour-and-a-half runtime, it's an undertaking of its own. That said, I once more find myself getting lost in the atmosphere. No way it needs to be this long, and I would love some reprieve before the next one, but hey, it still made the list, so there's that. We also have Gore with Cult Member. Total blast of a crossover record, very much akin to the likes of Power Trip and DRI. Short songs that pack a punch and don't waste your time getting straight to the headbanging.
Heavy shit.
I also listened to this right after working through my 90s metalcore ranking, which I highly recommend you check out, even if you're not generally into the genre. That those 90s ones go so hard. But this felt like a fun continuation after that. And just nice to be able to blast through a record in a few minutes sometimes. There's also Ritual Mass with Cascading Misery. Another dose of tunneling into a chasm death metal in the vein of Alterage and Portal from this debut. A wonderfully atmospheric mix of death and doom metal for a bad day. On a dime, this Pittsburgh crew will shift from technical blasts of rusted churning machinery to sprawling, resigned misery. Not quite as memorable as Portal or Alterage, but a damn fine start. Then there's Condition Critical with Degeneration Chamber. Absolutely kick-ass thrash record from this New Jersey quartet formed in 2010. Banger energy with a very disobedient aesthetic and tons of bass rumble. Big chuggy guitars and some very 80s sounding vocals complete the package. Favorite tracks on this one include Destructive Horrors and Cryptic Intestinal Preservation. We also have New World Depression with Abysmal Void. Rock solid German death metal with a bit of old school Swedish energy with those same melodic flourishes. And honestly, there are moments where the vocals remind me a bit of At the Gates. Rest in peace again to Thomas Lindberg. Reported influences include Asphyx, Bolt Thrower, and Obituary. Plenty of groove to get your motor running. Then we actually have Lorna Shore with I Feel the Everblack Festering Within Me. Once more, I'm sure I'm gonna get the tomatoes from the fanboys for not saying that this is like the best thing ever, just like they were saying with Pain Remains. But I do think that this represents a much better version of what that album was going for, and the more I listen to this one, the more promise that I found. Some real gems to be found here, including War Machine, Prison of Flesh, and A Nameless Hymn. I just hope that on the next album they can really take some chances instead of becoming a one-trick pony.
You're better than that.
We also have Kitty with the Spit EP. So I was ready to scoff at this as another unnecessary re-recording of songs I still very much enjoy the originals from, but goddamn. Do these versions hit the spot when I guess I just needed it? I mean, it's hard to improve on the perfection that the OG Brackish was, but the new one is very fun. They kept the essence of all four of these tracks while giving them a fresh twist and the benefit of Morgan's improved screams that put a big smile on my face. Then there's Pyrexia with Unholy. Album 8 for this New York death metal band we've also covered in the 90s by year rankings. Really tight 25 minutes of pure violent abominations that is actually a re-recorded and reimagining of their 2018 album Unholy Requiem. Blood to Ash, The Fall of Eden, The Anointed, and A Moment of Violence are particularly potent tracks that absolutely pummel you. And I also like the little samples again sprinkled throughout, as well as guest spots from members of Malignancy, Sanguisugabog, and Suffocation. Kind of outlier pick on the list here, we have Fleshwater with 2000 in Search of the Endless Sky. This band is more of a rock thing than a metal one, but given that it includes two members of Vane and gives me plenty of comparisons to both Rollo Tomasi and Deftones, it seems relevant enough. Whatever you call it, this is some lovely drifting melancholy that feels more than fitting of its album title. Just absolutely stunning chill music that was perfect for my morning starts, really gave me good vibes. More than a little kind of like Midwest emo coming through as well on this. Different kind of music, but the same energy. Then there's Many Eyes with Combust. Former Every Time I Die vocalist Keith Buckley follows up his new project's first full length with this 4-song EP, and I am digging this a lot more than the full length. I don't want to at all stifle Keith's creativity, but frankly this gives me a lot more of those old Every Time I Die hallmarks that I was missing on the debut. The sardonic lyrics that make me want to laugh and cry at the same time, the in-your-face delivery, the infectious riffs, all here, but also some little twists of their own, especially with final track Counting Teeth. This definitely makes me more excited about the path for this project moving forwards. Then there's 9 Inch Nails with Tron Ares. Give me something to believe in. Now, I was a bit miffed at finding out that the next Nine Inch Nails album was going to be a soundtrack for the new Tron movie, with Disney apparently pushing Trent and Atticus to use the band moniker rather than their names, as in the past.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
But ultimately, the end result is probably the most enjoyment I've had listening to one of their records front to back since the 2000s. It's no Pretty Hate Machine, The Downward Spiral, or The Fragile, but at this point, I don't really think anything can be. They're just not those people anymore. So I'm perfectly happy getting something that feels like a combination of the first Ghosts collection with a few vocal-driven tracks that fuse elements from across their career. Then when I heard a lot of people talking about this month, we have Vianova with Hit It. A lot of people recommended me this album, and I almost gave up due to it starting with auto-tune. That is just not my thing. But I'm glad I stuck with it because basically it turns into kind of a more eclectic Dance Gavin Dance meets Tala with plenty of djent. Really enjoy tracks like Oh No, Believer, Marimba, Yaya, and Future Nostalgia. I don't think it's the masterpiece I see some people hyping it up to be, but it shows a lot of promise. And then also Dying Wish with Flesh Stays Together. The third album from this metalcore crew that, despite being from my own Portland, Oregon, this is the first time I've actually checked out one of their albums. And given its ferocity, I'm glad that I sort of stumbled into it by accident. Given the alternations between the harsher and more melodic qualities, bands like Spiritbox, Ginger, Vexed, and Rollo Tomasi seem like fair comparisons, but I think that Emma Boster's screams have a particularly venomous, unhinged quality that were actually what drew me in to begin with. Like, she is so pissed on this record. Alright, before we get to my favorite and also least favorite picks of the month, we have some honorable mentions here, and also a little pause to remind you, if you're enjoying the video so far, hit the like button. It helps me out in the algorithm, as does commenting your own favorite and least favorite metal albums of the month. But yeah, first up with honorable mentions, we have Dark Angel with Extinction Level Event. Cool to have these guys back after 34 years, as I very much enjoy their 80s output, but man, is this far from their best work. There are some parts I really dig, but plenty of others that are not so hot. Would have loved for this to make the list, but it's relatively low within thrash this year. We also have Demersal, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the actual album title, I'm just going to say the translation, which is We Couldn't Stay Here Forever, could we? I've covered this Copenhagen band a few times on the Underground Bandcamp segment over the years, and this is their latest 5-song EP. They continue to grow and mature in their special brand of post-hardcore with excellent implementation of piano, brass, and other additional instruments for highly emotional listens. It's also Overt Enemy with Insurrection. Pretty solid groove and thrash metal from Texas, some banger riffs and serious bass guitar as well, but the vocals could definitely use some work. There's Nicolas Cage Fighter with I Watched You Burn. Solid no-frills metalcore release from this still relatively new Australian band, carrying on the band naming traditions from the MySpace era. Then there's Brothog with Vedves Enda. So overall, this fourth album from this Norwegian band is pretty typical black metal, but I gotta give it to the guitar player on this one for really cooking both in terms of riffs and solos. Not enough to make the main list, but praiseworthy nonetheless. But next up is Svartsat with Peregrinus. The sixth album from this Danish folk metal band, and it's solid enough for kind of a middle-of-the-road outing in the genre. Been a fan of them for a while, but it wasn't quite enough to make my best list. Then there's Der Weg einer Freiheit with Innern. Year after year, I give this German black metal band's albums a chance, and don't get me wrong, they're good. I just don't find myself personally getting much out of them, especially in comparison to what most people seem to. Not sure what it is. Great production and atmosphere. Maybe I just crave a little bit more in the riff department. I tend to get kind of bored. Then there's 1056 or 1056 with I.O. strong enough metalcore and deathcore album from this French group. I like the little interludes, one of which made me chuckle, actually. This is a rare case, too, where some of the more hip-hop influenced tracks were the ones that stuck with me more, whereas the more traditional ones felt a little bit generic. Also dig Snapped Neck. There's Before the Dawn with Cold Flare Eternal.
Behold the endless ocean, wait for the tide to exceed.
I've been a fan at times of this Finnish melodic death metal band, but the clean vocals and songwriting on this one just didn't do a whole lot for me this time around. Worth checking out their albums regardless. Also Amorphous with Borderland. Been a fairly long-time fan of this Finnish band, especially the last few albums, but this one felt a little bit too much like a lesser rehash to me. Plenty to enjoy, it just made me want to go listen to the previous ones instead. Check out the tier list. There's Swollen Teeth with Ask Nothing. Produced by Slipknot's Sid Wilson and Ross Robinson, this feels like it should be a slam dunk for a new metal fan like me, but I found myself more kind of intrigued by it than actually in love with it. Kind of new metal with Jane's Addiction vocals. I have them on my radar to follow, though. Then there's George Juk with Naglet to Live It. Some more super wicked Norwegian black metal with plenty of thrashy moments as well. Didn't quite break through to the main list, but if you want some good stuff in this style, then you've got it. Also After Earth with Dark Night of the Soul. Really solid Swedish melodeath that feels like a mix of Amon Amarth with In Flames. Production and pacing could use a little work, but very good. Yotuma, The Final Word. Some more grimy, ugly death metal mixing old school and the new with this Wisconsin band's second album. Sufficiently crunchy, but a little one note with a few standout moments. Then there's Peeling Flesh with PF Radio 2. Now again, I like rap. I enjoy rap in some of my metal too. I even like new metal, but I continue to fail to see the hype around these guys.
That means you're racist.
More super generic slam mixed with super generic rap. Also 10 tracks for an EP seems a little bit wild for me. If you enjoy it, great. As always, like, have at it. But for me, I'm just like, this is kind of the worst of both worlds, in my opinion. Of course, I will mention Paradise Lost with Ascension. Maybe my most asked for tier list that I did not deliver on this month. And modern day Paradise Lost is a really beautiful sleep aid. It's the best way that I can put it for me personal. I get why people enjoy this, but it's just not my thing. Some cool riffs though.
When next we meet, we are enemies.
Then there's Demon Hunter with There Was a Light Here. I've never been a big fan of this band, even in my peak metalcore days, and this album didn't really change that for me. The riffs feel generic, the lyrics pretty sophomoric, and the harsh vocals actually pretty weak. A few good songs here though, like Light Bends. Keeping on that metalcore train, we have I Prevail with Violent Nature. Another latecomer metalcore band I never found particularly interesting. Plenty of the same qualms with tracks like Annihilate Me and Rain that I have with modern day Architects. But also, like modern Architects, sometimes they drop a surprise banger like Violent Nature or NWO, which is like frustrating. There's also Bless the Fall with Gallows. So after all those, it may surprise some of you that I did enjoy this album, considering that it falls into plenty of the octane-core tropes that I tend to hate, even joking about the term in one of their videos.
What if they're butt raw? What if they're octane core?
But personally, I find that if the songwriting is still genuinely catchy and the clean vocals feel more inspired by like pop, punk, and emo than pop, R&B, and SoundCloud rap, then I tend to be more into it. And so this was just kind of like a throwback delight for me. But there's also Dance Gavin Dance with Pantheon. Really dug the last album from these guys, did not care much for this one. There are some standouts like Midnight at McGuffey's, but overall the songwriting doesn't feel as strong, and the parts with the vocal effects just kind of annoy me. But moving on to the worst album, in my opinion, of this month, we have President with King of Terrors.
How embarrassing.
Now, as disappointed as I was with that Dance Gavin Dance album, this is basically the Octane Core final boss. While admittedly catchy at times, this represents everything I hate about where metalcore has gone and why I feel the genre has become so unfairly misunderstood. The only redeeming quality is that it's just a 20-minute EP, but there assuredly will be more.
God save us all.
But that brings us to my favorite metal album of the month, and it was hard to choose, because man, there were a lot of good ones, Between the Buried and Me, Igorrr, Revocation, but I think ultimately I need to give it to Talo with Primeval, Obsession, Detachment.
It's already transpired. You just catch nothing in this moment. Intervention supposed to put the babe in the casket, maybe.
Another killer album from, in my mind, the only truly great nu metal act of the new school. This third album continues to show the band grow and improve, and the genuineness shines through, especially in the live single-take vocal performances from Justin Bonnetz, who was pretty ill and recovering from pneumonia, but still manages to just totally kill it. Also very impressed with Max Portnoy's performance on this album, moving now from drums to bass. All around super heavy stuff that I hope will carry the new generation of Jenko jeans, Korn t-shirt, and chain wallet sporting kids into another great era of angsty music. Whew, alright y'all, that was a lot again, and the year just doesn't show any signs of really even slowing down, but check out this video for more of my favorite metal albums of the year by month, and check this out for your personal YouTube recommendation. Again, there are lots of tier lists I did for discographies and bands in this list, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.